It's just a total failure, just a flop. My first job after college was at a small nonprofit traffic safety firm. They hired me as a programmer analyst, and they wanted me to work on a tablet application that they had been developing. When someone gets pulled over and they are impaired but they are not drunk, the specially trained officers will be called to the scene. They will do an evaluation on them to determine what type of drugs they are on. At the time, they were doing this evaluation on paper, but they wanted to change it so it would be done on a tablet. And that is the application they had me working on. They wanted me to basically turn this evaluation that was currently being done on paper and turn it into an Android tablet application. So I started from scratch and I started making this drug evaluation application for the Android tablet, and it was going okay. Like, really, for my first project out of college, it was really pretty good. And I worked on it for maybe about 6 months, and then we had a pilot program where there were about 10 officers throughout the state that used this application when they were doing evaluation. And we worked with the officers, we made some changes that they requested, but after a while they said, yeah, this application is good enough, we're going to roll it out statewide. So that was a pretty big deal. So we got ready for the statewide rollout. So each year or each 2 years, I don't really remember, these officers would have to come in to get recertified. And we knew there were going to be about 50 of these DRE officers that were going to get recertified near us, and we would just give them their tablet at that point, teach them how it would go. So I would do a little presentation to teach them how to use the tablet application. So the day before, we were just sideloading this application on about 50 tablets. I had been practicing my presentation, like I was ready to explain everything. I had a bunch of slides ready to go. I figured it would take about 45 minutes to present. At that time, and even now really, I was a pretty nervous presenter. So I really practiced it a lot, and even when I got home that night, I continued to practice. Like, I kept running through it, I kept looking at my slides, and finally when I went to bed, I was like, you know what, this is ready to go. We're gonna do a great job, and this is really exciting. Like, people are finally gonna get to use my application. So we get there, and we distribute our tablets, and I get in front of the crowd, and it's police officers, right? And I would be nervous even in front of just 50 regular people, but in front of 50 police officers, even one police officer is enough to make you nervous. So it's like 50 police officers, and they're ready to judge my application. So I was pretty nervous getting up there to make my presentation. And I'm going through, and the way I structured my presentation is that I would have it so that they would follow along with me. So I would go through the steps of like a mock evaluation, and then they would follow it on their tablet. And by the end, they would be able to get a PDF document that was just the completed evaluation. That was the plan. I got about 10% of the way through my presentation, and suddenly the app is just crashing for all the officers. Now, it's not crashing for me. I'm doing the same thing on my tablet, but for all the officers, it's just crashing. Application is no longer responding. Try again. So they would reopen it, they would get to the same point, crash. And it would just keep happening. There was just nothing I could do. There wasn't any way I could debug this app. It was working fine on my tablet. I don't know what was going on with them. So that was just bad. It was just bad. And then they started getting like a little bit pissed, and they thought that it was like, oh, maybe this is just something that we can fix. Maybe we can just fix it and move forward. But then more and more time got wasted. And the worst part was there was one officer, he was really determined to try to fix this. And there was part of this application that was drawing. And he was like, oh, look, I figured it out. I figured out how we can do this. And he was drawing on the app. And I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, I knew he didn't fix it. Like, I knew this guy didn't fix it. But he was like, oh yeah, this is what you have to do. And all this guy had done was he took a screenshot of the app in progress, and he was just drawing on it. And he was like, yeah, this is it. We fixed it. So that was it, you know? The application was just a total failure. We had to recollect all the tablets. And the people that I worked with who were these traffic safety professionals, they came up to me and they're like, what happened? What happened? Why did this crash? And it's like, I don't know why this crashed. It never crashed with us before. We had this 10-person pilot program going for months that like never had any of these problems. And then suddenly it's like we do this presentation and it's just a complete failure for everyone. It's just a total failure, just a flop. So we told these officers that we would take all their tablets back. I would work on an update. We would get it back to them within a week. And they announced this without even consulting me. I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like, I've never seen anything like this. I'm still just a very junior developer. I hadn't even been working professionally for a year at this point. So when we got back to the office, I just started right away working on a fix for this. And I went through my tablet and it's like I just couldn't get it to crash at all. But then I took one of the officer's tablet and I got the crash right away. And it was just like a really weird thing. Like it was just like, this permission is denied. So we had been developing these for these Samsung tablets that had styluses. It was very important for these tablets to have styluses because there was parts of the app that required you to write or draw, and it was just much better to use a stylus than to use your finger. And we actually had it so like you would draw using the stylus and then go through and erase with your finger. I got this weird error on their tablet. And what had happened was we had our version of the tablet that we used for development and for testing internally and then with the pilot program. But since then, Samsung had released a newer version and we couldn't get the version that I had at that point. When we installed the app, it worked fine on these tablets. But the problem was, as soon as these tablets connected to Wi-Fi, it installed an update to the newer version of Android. So I think at that point it was on Ice Cream Sandwich and it jumped to Jelly Bean, something like that. And within the app, it was really important to have an external SD card. And the idea was that, you know, these are police officers working potentially dangerous situations. And if there was ever anything to happen to the tablet, hopefully the data backed up to the SD card would still be good. And I just had it as like a JSON string, just like each evaluation was represented by one JSON string, and I would just be constantly backing those up to the SD card. The way the application was designed at that point is I just had, each time I would save to the tablet, I would also save to the SD card. You also had to run this command that was basically letting the operating system know that there was a new file on the SD card and just to keep track of it. At that point, I was just using this command that would just let it know just to rescan the entire SD card for new file. But the problem was, with the newer version of Android, they no longer allowed this full SD card media scan. If you wanted to scan, you had to say, okay, here's my new file. This is the exact file. That's the new file on my external SD card. Scan that, keep track of it, and then it's good. So anytime I got to the full SD card media scan, it would just crash. So that's what was happening. It's like they had the newer version of Android, it would get to this media scan, and then the application would just crash. So at that point, I knew what the bug was. I was able to update it to the new media scan, and everything was good. And we were able to redistribute the app, and everything moved forward as planned. Now, honestly, it was a lot of responsibility for someone with my level of experience. Now that I have about 10 years of experience, I wouldn't have hired someone like me to work on this application. Like, it was a great learning experience for me, and it sort of worked out. Yeah, I was the sole developer working on this application. They had one developer working on the backend API, and he had only a little bit more experience than me. Like, he knew a lot more about programming. Like, he had been programming since he was a child, whereas, like, I didn't really pick it up until I was around 19. I was about 22 at this time. Just expecting the two of us to come up with this great application that these police officers are going to use for real police work, it was a lot, you know? It was, you know, and it worked out, but like it was almost just like random chance that this thing worked out as well as it did. So what were the lessons learned from this experience? Well, first off, we made sure that if we were going to distribute new tablets or distribute a new version, we were going to test it on all the tablets that the officers would get. We would install all the updates before we would distribute it, and we would just have every version of every tablet we had from that point on and just really make sure our testing was down pat before doing a new distribution. But probably the biggest benefit for me is that I just have this story moving forward. Anytime you get into an interview, they'll ask you, tell me about a time where things did go so well. And for some people, it's like they have to either like make something up or like they'll just like kind of like halfway tell them something where things didn't go badly. But it's like I had this catastrophic failure in my first year of working. And, you know, I'm very lucky that I have this because no matter what, from this point on, I can go in an interview, I know I have this story, and I can just tell them. And that's just great. That's just like something I don't have to worry about for my entire career. So let me know in the comments, what has been your biggest mistake in your programming career? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe. I'll be making more content for developers moving forward. Thanks for watching and have a great day.